Writing as a tool of recovery. Christina is going to share her experience with writing in her recovery.
Lisa, can you go first?
Sure. So I'll just put both our names there at the same time. Yeah, so for me personally, I've been writing since I was a little girl. In fact, I was that little girl in school that would write big, long, elaborate stories. I remember doing that in 4th grade. And I think when I was about 11 years old, I received a journal, you know, like one of those little diaries that has the little lock that's totally useless, but we think that it's good. And I started writing in a diary. And as a kid, you know, really young like that, I didn't even know what to write. So I would write what I had for dinner that day or who I played with out in the street or, you know, the neighborhood kids or whatever. But later on, it became a tool for me. It became an outlet. It became, somebody mentioned venting. It was definitely venting as a teenager. And it became a place where I was safe. I could share whatever I wanted in whatever way I wanted. There was nobody grading my work, the perfectionism thing. There was nobody making sure the punctuation was right and that the grammar was proper. I could just get it out. And for me, that offered me a level of safety because I didn't have that. I didn't have anywhere to go with that. And back then, of course, we didn't have personal computer, so everything was pretty much done pen and paper. And I actually connect very strongly with that. So for me, when I got into recovery and I heard, hey, writing is an important part of the work that we do, I took right to it. I didn't have a problem with it. It would be scary sometimes. I could procrastinate. I could do a lot of the obstacles that were mentioned here. I could be fearful. I used writing for my inner child work, and that was very helpful. In fact, I still do that today. But what I have found more than anything else is that it allows me to get stuff out of my head onto the paper, and I can deal with it. And I have not found anything else that helps me as much as writing when it comes to that. So at this time, I'll pass it over to my lovely co-host, Christina.
Oh, thanks, Lisa. Okay, so let me switch an option around here. I had you on speaker view, so now I want to see everybody. How the hell do I do that? Okay, there you guys are. Okay, Christina, codependent here. Thank you so much for sharing, Lisa. My experience with writing is somewhat similar. I remember having like a diary when I was younger, just wrote down like, you know, things I did throughout the day. And then when I was a teenager, I was sharing all about the guys that I had crushes on and then friends and stuff like that. I remember like I was an 80s baby or am an 80s baby. So in school, we didn't have cell phones. We just passed notebooks back and forth with letters back and forth to each other. And it was like our friendship notebooks. And so that's how we would basically text back in the day. So anyways, so then my addiction kind of completely took off running, and then I just fell deep into a hole in addiction. And so anyways, I got into recovery, and then I started writing on my steps. And I really didn't connect very well when I first started journaling or writing on my steps. You know, I just answered the question kind of vague, and you know, I wasn't really connecting. And then I go into with a group of people, and then I remember sharing, like a lot of you guys know, I was in a pretty catastrophic car accident in 2001, and I was the only one that lived, and my back is broken and my legs were crushed, everything like that. So I remember for years telling people, oh yeah, this is what happened. This is why I moved out to Arizona, you know, the dry heat. I grew up in New York. And anyway, so and they're like, gosh, you must have some pretty big feelings about that. I was like, not really. Like, I just did everything I could do to just be okay. And I'm totally fine. And then I go into this group, right, with a bunch of other codependents. And the mentor was like, well, how do you feel about that, Christina? I was like, oh, I'm totally fine. Like, it happened in 2001 and it's now 2014. I'm like, it happened so long ago. I'm totally fine. And then he goes, well, no, no, actually, you're not. I'm like, well, how the hell is he telling me how I'm feeling? There's no freaking way. And then he's like, okay, well, that sounds good. Why don't you just go ahead and write your story then about it? And just go ahead and write all the, the things that you were left powerless over, all of the things that you were helpless over, your friend dying, and then the other, truck driver dying, and what happened to your body, and all of the things that happened thereafter. I was like, okay, fine. And then he's like, well, go ahead and add all the feelings in there. I'm like, okay. So I write the whole story out, and I go in, I negotiate for my time with 10 other people. I'm like, I want to read this now. And they're like, okay. So then I open up my notebook, and then all of a sudden, like, the writing I wrote, like, I don't know, weeks ago, I'm like looking at, I start sweating, and my heart starts pounding, and then I look down at the paper, and I read like 2/13/2001, and then all of a sudden I start reading, and then boom, it was like the moment when the lid burst off of my suppressed and depressed and oppressed feelings, and all of a sudden, like, this earthquake came rumbling out of me. Like, I am shaking, I'm sweating, the energy around me is like heavy, and I was like, why can't I breathe? I mean, I'm sobbing. I mean, like shaking. And everybody was there that, they really held a lot of love and space for me in that moment. And he said, well, you have a lot of suppressed feelings that were stuck inside of your cell tissue, and that are now coming out. I was like, I just don't understand. This happened in 2001 and it's now 2014. What the heck? Why? Well, no, you have to go back and have express your original pain to get original justice, because things that happen that we don't get justice on stay inside of the cells in the body, and then it just attracts more illness, more sickness, more just addiction, compulsions, obsessions. So then, we started talking about all the shame. I mean, I just had so much body shame and shame about scars. I have like 22 scars going up and down my body, and there was a lot of sexual shame in there. And there was just a lot of stuff that I was able to express the original pain and get some original justice on it. And I was so terrified of not being loved or accepted and or wanted, just because of the way that I looked after that. So then then we created more a space for connection, to ask people to there was this toxic shame message in there that said you're not worth anybody to touch you, and I just felt like so much shame that nobody would want to touch me. And they said, would you like somebody to hold you? And I said, to counteract the lie, because it's a lie, that I believed about me. And I was absolutely terrified to ask somebody in that group to do that for me. And so anyways, I did. And then my sponsor at the time, she was pretty amazing. And she was like, yeah, I would like to hold you, Christina. It was pretty healing and amazing to have that that loving and nurturing. So anyway, so that happened. And then I was like, oh my gosh, this dispels like all this energy around me, and it breaks all these toxic shame lies. And so I was like, oh my God, what's the next thing I can do? And then I learned that, all these things that, I was left powerless over, I also needed to get pretty angry about them and look at them in a way to where I'm fighting for my little girl, because this happened to like a little child, and now to fight for her and for her, Justin get really pissed off about it and give myself a voice where I was voiceless. So that was pretty amazing. So it gave me a voice, which where I was voiceless. So then anyways, I learned how to be really assertive this process, embracing my anger. I love anger. We're going to talk about feelings here in a minute. I love feelings. So anyways, I was super excited. I'm like, I want to start writing about all my stories and everything, because I got so much love and I got so much connection, and they didn't leave. Like, they still loved me no matter what I looked like and how many scars I had, and like they loved me. So I was super excited about that. And I then went, told my story backwards. So then I went through my teenage years, then I went through my adolescent, and then to my infancy, which was a pretty rough start. So my experience with writing, I guess I'll leave that there, because I feel like I shared a little bit longer, because we have a whole workshop ahead of us. So we can move on. I feel pretty complete with that.
Thank you, Christina.
You're welcome.
Okay.
So this one's my part. So now we were going to discuss on ways that you can use writing that refer back to the literature. So for me, I'm kind of a rebel, and I'm a little fighter, which is fine. Now I feel very limited by what this newcomer handbook says. It says step 4, 8, 10, and 12. I'm like all of them. So Lisa was sharing earlier, these are great steps to do list work. Okay, great. So that's how I feel about that. Now Lisa's going to go ahead and share the next.
Well, thank you, Christina. So one of the exercises that I do with sponsees is with step 2, and it's firing the old higher power and hiring a new one. And so what I'll have people do is make a list of who or what characteristics represent the current higher power. And then I have them come up with a list of a dream higher power, where they list, if they could have the perfect higher power in the whole world, what would your higher power be? And so we do that. And then I have them write a letter firing the old higher power and write a letter hiring the new higher power. And then that list that they wrote, they typically do it on one page and just split the page in half. And I have them rip it in half, and I have them give me the old one to throw away. And I ask them to keep the new one. And I ask them to keep it handy to refer to when they're struggling, or when there's a need for connection with higher power, to remember who they're connecting with. And writing is an essential portion of that exercise. These are just examples. There are a myriad of them. As many people as there are in recovery, there are probably that many or more examples of how writing can be used in recovery. These are examples just to kind of get you thinking that, writing is a part of recovery. Writing methods. Are you okay with me just blazing through these, or did you want to go into any detail, Christina?
Go ahead and take it.
Blazing, computer. So I've talked to a lot of people over the years, and there are some people with learning differences, and pen and paper doesn't work for them, but a computer does. I'm okay with that. I do encourage pen and paper wherever possible. However, dictation to a device, phone, tablet, or computer. I actually sponsored someone who was born with one hand, and she broke that hand and was unable to write very well. And so we had to look for creative ways for this person to do her work. and dictating into a small recording device allowed her to do the step work in a way that worked for her. Audio recording, same thing. Ask a friend to take notes. Sometimes we don't have access to these devices, and so we can ask a friend to write it down for us. Pen and paper, my personal favorite. There is something that happens between the brain and the hand, and Christina has talked about this as well. But I would like to speak to the person who said their thoughts go faster than their hand. And I have the same problem. My thoughts go way faster than my hand, and I wind up with trick and scratch. And so really what it's telling me is that I need to slow down. If I'm trying to go faster than what's happening up in my head, I'm trying to bypass my feelings. So instead of going 55 miles an hour with a computer, I'm going 25 with pen and paper. And what that allows for me is to feel my feelings. For me personally, if I get on the computer and start typing, I bypass my feelings completely. So whenever possible, I do encourage the use of pen and paper. You can use a pencil or crayons too if you really want to, or markers. And Christina, you are on.
Okay, this is just a nice colorful wheel.
Leading us into
oh my God, I love myself
precious.
Today. So that was a great colorful wheel. Thank you very much. Okay, so this happens to be one of my very, very favorite pieces right here. Now, there is 7 primary feelings. Oh no. Hold on, I need a second because sometimes I start laughing. It feels like, and I won't be able to stop. You know, like one of those belly laughs that you just can't stop them. So, back to the feelings. So, it's interesting because we're on pain. So now pain for me is like sadness. It could be any kind of like, just like, you know, blah, meek, feeling like it could be just unhappy, you know, and I like to look up the definitions for words because oftentimes there's a whole lot more information that the dictionary provides. And so before, like, you know, growing up for me, like I was taught that feelings is not okay and you just kind of, you know, not to feel like that, or people trying to hurry up and fix my feelings by, you know, various actions. Or trying to fix me to not feel like that because you're supposed to be happy like all the time. Everything you're supposed to feel great. But that's just a lie. Like our feelings are like a compass from our source. Like we were given they're gifts and they're instilled within us and I feel like they need to be expressed. And so when we suppress that pain and it doesn't have original justice or a voice, like there's this natural evolution where we get to express them and then they're just naturally, there's like a surrender that happens afterwards and then acceptance. It gets distorted, it causes more suffering, causes us to become either victims or perpetrators, and then just complaining all the time, like I fucking hate that, or this, or they did that, or oh my gosh, or turn it in on myself. And beat myself up over it. So it causes more suffering, and then it causes fear on top of that because now I'm terrifying myself. But when I embrace my pain, it, like I shared earlier, it causes me to completely expose myself and let the light shine through, and then let others. It's like this natural way to be able to connect to myself, my higher power, other people, and it's incredibly healing. And then it's like I get closer and closer to feeling love and feeling gratitude for, you know, myself and with my higher power, source, whatever you want to call it. So guilt is a feeling about something an action that I have done that is going against my morals and values. And then when I embrace my guilt, it teaches me how to have humility, and then it teaches me where I need to insert a moral or a value. And so it teaches me my value system, basically. And I tell everybody in the committee that we are here to make a ton of mistakes, because it's going to teach us how to have self-esteem, because it's all teaching me how to have self-esteem. So if I suppress my guilt, I'm going to probably feel not only guilty, but humiliated into the shame. I'll go into shame about it. So guilt and shame can be kind of confusing, because guilt is about an action that I've done that I've done. Shame is more about something that I label myself as I am a piece of shit. Like, I really screwed up here, and they're, never gonna, like, there's no acceptance, there's no love, there's no empowerment there. Shame diminishes everything about who I am and what I believe. And it's the core of my disease, I think, fear and shame, and it can be very addicting. All these feelings, I feel, can be very addicting, because if it's a repetitive thing, that's addiction. And so then there's also healthy shame. It teaches me that I don't go outside, without clothes on, or it teaches me, you just don't steal somebody's purse or money out of their wallet, or it teaches me to close the door when I'm in the bathroom unless it doesn't have a door on it. So there's healthy shame, and that's the feeling where that's a healthy feeling, instead of toxic shame, where I completely spiral into and then I pull up the whole list, the whole gamut. Oh, well, when you were 5, that happened in 2nd grade. The teacher said this, and I just did this my whole effing life. And I just, I could just go on and on and on until where I'm in a shame spiral and I have zero value and I need to call somebody for help. And this happens a lot because I'm very shame and fear based. And then anger. Anger is an incredibly healthy feeling. I was taught not to have anger. Good girls don't get angry. And then I also decided when I was a teenager, anger hurts people. So it's not good to be angry. But anger is a very, very healthy, because it teaches me, it empowers me. It teaches me tolerance, my tolerance lets me know where I need to insert a boundary, and the anger is where I know where my tolerance is. So anger was pretty hard for me to learn about in the beginning, because I'm just I wasn't allowed to have this anger. And so what I learned is to take it out of myself and to take apart these situations or the certain circumstance and look at it as if that circumstance happened to my inner child at 5 years old. How would you feel? I would be so enraged. Or if it happened to a friend of mine, or how would you feel if it happened to friends? So that's kind of how I learned to get in touch with my anger. Also, I did some actions to get in touch with my anger, like using a bat in a bag to really suppress anger, because sometimes that can happen too. So so my anger empowers me, and it strengthens me, and it teaches me where I need to have a boundary. This is not okay, and this is what I'm going to do now. Okay. Fear. Fear has different levels to it. Anything more than concerned is toxic. Oh, I just have a little bit of concern about the dog door. I didn't know if the dog, might get out. Anything more than that, if I'm up all night, oh God, I can't go to sleep because I don't know if the dog's going to get out. And I'm fretting, and I'm in panic, and I'm worried. Worried is a toxic feeling. Anything more than concern. So Now, fear also releases all kinds of like cortisol and hormones, addictive hormones that like make us like adrenaline. They're so addicting what fear does. It causes adrenaline, cortisol, epinephrine, and dopamine to get released into my system to where I do not feel pain. Like, you ever see like somebody getting into an accident and they're in shock? I was literally walking around in a state of shock all the time because I couldn't handle all the other feelings underneath it because of all this adrenaline. And fear is very, 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 very addicting. Now, on the other side of fear is excitement, and that is also equally addicting, but that one just looks a little bit better because then you see all these adrenaline junkies, all these excitement addicts, and what I've known about these two addictions, every time I go up, I always hit a withdrawal on the way down. That's why you hear about the love addicted withdrawal and withdrawal of like, I don't know, someone leaving or just something happening. It's because of these incredibly addicting chemicals that I do it myself. I don't even need to use drugs anymore. I could just use a thought, and then that thought, whoop, I'm off, and I'm completely not feeling any type of pain. Months and months go by, and I'm just like, oh, where's Christina? Oh, let's bring her back down to reality. So anyway, now, so lonely is a feeling that I just got in touch with probably within the last 3 or 4 years. And it took me a while to get in touch with loneliness. So I feel lonely every time I am in a distorted feeling. I feel lonely anytime I'm in shame. I feel lonely when I am well, sometimes guilt, depending on if I hit the guilty or if I go into shame about it. So anyway, anytime I'm in shame, I'm incredibly lonely because I'm completely cut off from myself, from my higher power, and other people. And I learned that loneliness, I'm either lonely for myself, for my higher power, or other people. And I need to check that out. Within myself, which one of these things I need to go get my cup filled from. And this pandemic has been incredibly lonely for a lot of us. So it teaches me to, like it says, the gift there is reaching out, or I will go the opposite and just go into victim or into a perpetrator and just loathe in it. Okay. And bask myself in it. And bitch about it. Okay. So yeah. And it causes more pain, probably a shit ton of fear and anger, which then turns into rage. So anyways, that's another day. So joy. Okay, so joy's there. Why is it, all these feelings are positive, okay? Unless they go into the distortion. So, all of them are gifts from source, our higher power, whatever you want to call it. Joy is incredibly healing, and it's incredibly connecting, and it's just one of the most amazing things that, I feel like the gift in these feelings, if we embrace them, especially the pain, also leads to the healing and the joy. They say there's this someone, I don't know if it's a saying, like, you don't really know incredible joy unless you've known incredible pain. So now on the distorted part of it, it says high excitement, which is the opposite of fear, which is incredibly high excitement, incredibly addicting. And then there will most likely always be a withdrawal after that because the motive isn't clean. Now, I feel like I did go ahead and define the guilt, shame, anger, and all the rest of the feelings. So we can move on.
Christina and Lisa, we're about top of the hour.
That's where I was at. I was just going to suggest if we take a break right now and then we'll come back to do our exercise. Is that okay, Mauricio?
Yeah, perfect.
All right. All right, everybody, welcome back. I would recommend, because we are going to do breakout rooms real soon, that if you have paper and pen, pencil, crayon, marker, whatever you're going to use, if you're going to have that handy, that would be really great, because we are going to do a writing exercise in a little bit, and it will be based on the 7 primary feelings. So I will leave that up for just a moment as people are coming back in. If you need to screenshot that so that you have them available, or if you need to make a list of them, that would be great. Thank you, Christina, for going into detail about them. That's great. Give people an idea of what they're dealing with. All right. Welcome back, everyone. We are going to go ahead and move forward, I hope. How to do a feelings journal. So this is a writing exercise that Christina and I have been taught to do, and it helps us, I will speak for myself, it helps me to connect with my feelings and situations or encounters that I've had throughout the day. And it might even be a couple days if I haven't done one in a while. So the way a feelings journal works, we make one-line statements for each feeling. We avoid telling a story. We just want one-liners. This is what happened. No stories or explanations. In doing this, sticking with one-line statements rather than stories, it keeps us from getting into the intellect and sticking with the heart. And so what's going to follow is an example of what a feelings journal could look like. So under pain, could have physical pain. There could be emotional pain. And as Christina talked about as well, guilt. I didn't do something I said I was going to do. Shame. And you'll notice that you can have multiple feelings about the same incidents. Anger. Fear. I don't know about for all of you, but the pandemic really brought up a lot of fear and a lot of lonely for me. And it actually happened around not being able to see friends and family. And there was a lot of fear about not being able to do that again. Missing face-to-face meetings. I don't know about where you are, but here meetings are just starting to open up. So I'm hoping that that will change. And then finally, joy. Again, this is just an example of what a feelings journal could look like. It can be that specific. Really stick to the one-liners. That's the big thing that I could share. So what we would like to do now is to give you an opportunity to do a feelings journal. What we'd like you to do is to write a feelings journal using the 7 basic feelings. We're going to give you, I'm thinking, Christina, what do you think? 15, 20? What do you think?
Yeah, 15.
Okay. I'm sorry?
I'm undecided.
Okay, I'll choose 15. I don't mind deciding. So we're going to have you take 15 minutes to write a feelings journal and to share about the experience with the group that you're in. So we're going to go into breakout rooms at this time. We ask that you share about how you feel about the experience. Was a pattern revealed? Did you encounter obstacles to writing? Whoops, went too far. Hate when I do that. The main thing we want to emphasize here is that we're not asking you to share the specifics of the journal. That is not the purpose of this exercise. This is personal. This is something that you might share with a sponsor or trusted recovery friend. But we really want to look for a more general sense of how you felt about it. Was a pattern revealed? So I know for myself, sometimes I'll write out my feelings journal and I'll go, woo, there was a lot of anger that day. Or there might be a lot of shame. I have some days where there's just a tremendous amount of joy. And I think probably most of all what gets revealed to me is that any given day can be a mixture. It's not all bad. It's not all good. It's not all shame. It's not all anger. There's this mixture, this tapestry that's woven. So at this time, we would like you to go into breakout rooms. So we're middle, so I know where I'm looking. All right. So we wanted to touch on different types of writing. And Christina, if you're okay, can we blaze through this so we have time for people to ask questions and share? Okay.
Yes, I want to hear their voices.
I
Yes,
agree.
play
I agree.
through that.
Okay. Different types of writing. Inner child work. Somebody mentioned using writing as part of inner child work, and that has been my experience too. Journaling. Christina talked a lot about journaling, and it's good stuff. God writing. Christina, did you want to talk about God writing briefly?
I would be delighted. Thank you for asking. So this happens to be one of my favorite pieces of writing right here. And so I do this pretty much every single day. It's a part of my steps, like my 1, 2, 3, 11, 6, and 7. So anyways, basically all of them. And I say, step 1 says we admitted. And so I admit to all kinds of things about who I am to my higher power. So I admit my feelings, I admit my struggles, I admit the things I want to achieve, I just admit. And then I say, I call my higher power God, and that's just what I call it. I don't know what the hell name it. I don't know what to name it. All right. So I say, God, this is where I'm at. And I admit, and I say, God, I'm feeling very resistant. I'm feeling this. I'm feeling that. And can you please help me have strength? Please help me have courage. Help me accept. Help me this. Help me that. And then all of a sudden, I don't know what happens, but I put this stuff down and I pray to this thing that I don't really know its name. And then boom, my life changes like completely. And all my, everything just shifts and transforms just because I put that down on the paper and I let it go. And then at times in my recovery career, well, it's not really a career, it's just more of a lifestyle, I wrote back to myself, to my little girl, from my higher power to me. And that's incredibly loving. It's a big love fest on that paper. All these amazing things that this beautiful, benevolent being could possibly say. It's pretty amazing. So I'm very inspired by God writing.
Thank you, Christina. Oh, excuse me. Thank you. Okay. Letters never sent. Many of you may have experience with this. You want to get something out to somebody, might be really pissed off, might have some things to say that wouldn't necessarily be appropriate to say out loud, but we need to get it out. And I have found this to be very, very important. Letters never sent used to just be on pen and paper. And now it's email. Just don't hit send, please. Inventory, step work. Affirmations, great way to combat shame messages, and our ever-loving gratitude. Gratitude list can be a wonderful way to shift attitudes, connect with higher power, and to remember that it's not all horrible.
There we go. Awesome. Great. So after the closing prayer, I'll have some affirmations for all of you, and then we'll open up the room for fellowship. If you have any questions or commentary for Christina and Lisa, as long as they're hanging out with us, feel free to do so. So I'll close this out here with our closing prayer. We thank our higher power for all that we have received from this meeting. As we close, may we take with us the wisdom, love, acceptance, and hope of recovery. And for affirmations wise, I just want to let everybody know that you are a super boss, mega boss. You are a living legend. You're beautiful. You're worth it. And I love all of you. Thank you so much for being here.